Islam is a very practical religion. And so when we talk about the wisdom of Islam, we notice something that differs from other religions in a structural way. And that is that we have rules in our religion, in Islam, to teach us how to relate to people from other religions. And this is actually part of a sign to us that this revelation that we have is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a revelation came and it was just cooked up by some person, it wasn't a real revelation, it was a forgery, then you would imagine that it would only sort of be, it would be tribalistic, right? It would only sort of give you guidance for how to deal with people who thought like you, and well, everybody who was different, then forget about them. But that's not the Quran. And in fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blames the Christians and the Jews in the Quran for having kind of fallen into this attitude. He says in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَقَالَتِ الْيَهُودُ لَيْسَتِ النَّصَارَى عَلَى شَيْءٍ وَقَالَتِ النَّصَارَى لَيْسَ الْيَهُودُ عَلَى شَيْءٍ وَهُمْ يَتْلُونَ الْكِتَابَ. Right? So that they're claiming that the other side isn't on anything. It means that they don't have any redeeming qualities, nothing good about them, that they're completely categorically off. وَهُمْ يَتْلُونَ الْكِتَابَ. He said, and they recite the scriptures. So Allah is suggesting that there has to be some sort of good. Even if they have a lot of bad things, even if they completely reject the message, we have to be just. We have to recognize what's good and what's bad. And this is why we have in Islam actually that Islam is not supposed to exist in isolation. As Muslims, we're not supposed to go out and just build our own intentional communities or communes that only have Muslims. Islam is meant to be lived practically, pragmatically, in society, alongside other people. The Prophet ﷺ lived among the idolaters in Mecca, and then he lived among Jews in Medina, and that was the way it was. And there's things within Islam that accommodate for that and give us guidance for how to do that. When it comes to certain rules that have to do with marriage and certain rules that have to do with food, we have guidance where to draw the circle. What can we be okay with, and what do we have to put our foot down and say that's not okay? Islam was not meant to be, or we should say maybe Muslims were not meant to live completely in isolation, that they're meant to mix with the people. And this is an expression of Allah's wisdom. There's wisdom behind this.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
One of the things that make this a very, very wise part of Islam is that when you do this, when you live among other people who don't think the same as you, you get to show them the beauty of Islam. We see this every day in the West. There's lots of people who, the smallest thing that we do in Islam impresses them. We had the viral video of the one Christian pastor who was riding a taxi, I think in New York City it was. And the taxi driver was a Muslim and had to stop to pray dhuhr. And he went and he gave a whole sermon about it to his congregation, about how inspiring it was that this Muslim individual had to stop to pray, without realizing that this is normal behavior for us. This is not something new. You had people that were amazed at Habib, the UFC fighter, the former UFC fighter, who, when they were traveling around with him, he's the star, he's the head honcho, right? But he's not the one who's riding up front. He would always make his dad ride up front as a sign of respect. And this is from Islam. And so you have people that are not used to this type of behavior. They're not used to this type of consideration for other people, or this high moral standard. And so when they become exposed to it, they love it. And it brings them closer to the deen. And the other piece of wisdom behind this, why Muslims are meant to mix with the people, and Islam is a pragmatic, practical religion, is that it shows Muslims the false ways of those people who are outside of Islam. We see the way that people abuse alcohol. We see the ways that people gamble. We see the ways that people dress. We see the ways that people raise their kids. It gets worse and worse in modern society, seemingly every year. And this is an opportunity. There's wisdom in this, because we can look back and we can say, Alhamdulillah for Islam. That the benefit of Islam, the blessing of Islam, is the greatest blessing. There's nothing better than the blessing of Islam. Look at how much dignity we have because of Islam. Look at how much cleanliness we have because of Islam. Look at how much purity we have when it comes to Islam. And that doesn't mean that every single one of us is living a perfect life and doing all of these things. We sin, but we know what's right and we know what's wrong. This is something that I've reflected upon many times as a convert. People who they're born into a Muslim family, they don't realize this amazing blessing or how amazing this blessing is. Because when you're from a Muslim family, even if you lead a life of sin, and we all sin, but even if you have a high degree of sin, let's say, you know at the end of the day what you have to do to get right. You know that if you want to straighten up, you start going to the masjid, you start reading Quran, you start doing your dhikr, you start getting better with your prayers, you start treating your parents right. You know what to do, what's right and what's wrong. But for those people who they're not from a Muslim family, the scariest thing for them is that even if they want to do the right thing, they don't know where to start. They don't know what prayer looks like. They don't know which book is going to guide them. They don't know where to go, where they can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be with other people that are going to be part of the same project that they're part of. So this is all part of the amazing wisdom of Islam. Islam is meant to be lived by people who mix with the society. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, it's better that you mix with the people and be patient with their harm than you retreat and never mix with these people in the first place. And that's a general wording. That goes for both Muslims and being around non-Muslims. And we hope that we live up to that expectation where we are attracting other people to Islam by our actions. And we hope that we have faith that is sincere enough and sensibilities that are pure enough that we recognize the evil when we see it and we recognize the good when we see it.